when we say Krishna, the essence of who he is. He is an irrepressible child, a terrible prankster, an enchanting flute player, a graceful dancer, an irresistible lover, a truly valiant warrior, a ruthless vanquisher of his foes, a man who left a broken heart in every home. An astute statesman and kingmaker, a thorough gentleman, a yogi of the highest order, and the most colorful incarnation, Krishna. To contain him in these 7 days is an impossible challenge. At the most, we can just have a glimpse of who he is. And that glimpse should be more than enough. If we have to… Krishna is seen and perceived and understood and experienced in many, many different ways by different people. Duryodhana, through the eyes of Duryodhana. For those of you who do not know the background, I will be… because unless you understand the whole tapestry of the story and the situation in which he existed, many aspects of who he is will be missed, so we will go into it. But right now, Duryodhana is a man because of certain situations into which he was placed, insecure, angry, jealous, greedy and feeling wronged all his life. And because of actions which came forth from his greed and anger, he became the key for destruction of his whole race. In Duryodhana's words, he is a smiling rogue, if there was ever one. He can eat, he can drink, he can sing, he can dance, he can make love, he can fight, he can gossip with old women, play with little children. Who says he is God? That's Duryodhana's perception. Shakuni, the very embodiment of deception and cunning. Shakuni says, let us suppose he is God. So what? What can a God do? God can only please those devotees who please him. Let him be God. I don't like him. And when you don't like somebody, you must praise them. That's deceit. Radhe, his childhood lover, a milkmaid, a simple woman of the village. But with such unfaltering love and devotion, she has become so big that today you cannot talk of Krishna without Radhe. We don't say Krishna Radhe, we say Radhe Krishna. She has become a simple village woman. She has become as significant as Krishna or little more significant than him. She said, Krishna is with me. He is always with me. Wherever he is, whoever he is with, he's still with me. That's her perception. Vainteya, a youth who was the Garuda chief's eldest son, living on the mountains of Gomantak. A sprightly youth, because of a certain ailment, became totally crippled. This crippled youth, after he met Krishna, Krishna made him walk. So Vainteya said, he is God, he is God, he is God. Akrura, an uncle of Krishna, a wise and saintly being, expressed his perception of Krishna this way. Krishna, when I look at him, this strange young boy, I see the sun, the moon and the 7 stars whirling around him. When he speaks, he sounds like the voice of the eternal. He's the hope. If there is hope in this world, he's the hope. Shikandin, a tortured human being, because of a certain situation within himself, right from his child. This is an absolutely tortured soul. So Shikandin said, Krishna never gave me any hope, but when he is there, the breeze of hope touches everybody. I can go on like this. Different people saw different facets of who he is. For some he is God, for some he is a crook, for some he is a lover, for some he is a fighter, so many things he is. If we want to taste an essence of what it means when we say Krishna, the consciousness that we refer to as Krishna, if we have to be touched by this, we need Leela. Here we are for the Leela. Leela means it is the path of the playful. This is not for the serious types, are you? Because when I say playfulness, we are not here just to play. We are here to explore the most profound and the most serious aspect of life, but playfully, conducted playfully. Otherwise, Krishna won't be there. The reason why the most profound dimensions of life have been missed by the vast population in the world is because they do not know how to be playful. Bhima, who was a devotee of Krishna, when somebody approached him, Bhima had his own way of saying. A young woman wanted to meet Krishna, so she came to Bhima because she wanted to meet Krishna in secrecy. Her name was Jalandhara. When Jalandhara came in the night to the akhada or the gymnasium to meet Bhima in secrecy, Bhima was under the impression she's come to meet him. He thought it's a rendezvous. When she came and said, "I want to meet Krishna," he was disappointed. Said, "If you want to meet Krishna, why did you call me in the middle of the night here? You go and meet him. From morning to evening, he's seeing people. This is the playfulness around him." These were absolutely dedicated to him, these people, absolutely devoted to him. But this is the way they spoke about him. If you want to explore this path playfully, if you want to be playful, you need a heart full of love, a joyful mind and a vibrant body. Otherwise, there's no leela. You sit there, a loving heart, a joyful mind and a vibrant body do you have? Only then there is leela. If there is no love in your heart, if there is no joy in your mind, you don't know how to be vibrant, then there is no leela. If we really want to do leela, and we are doing everything so playfully, some of you may get caught up and lose the whole point. It once happened, 3 bear hunters met. One was a Frenchman, the other was an Englishman. The other was actually Polish because we have an Italian right here, we will make him into an Italian. So they had a few drinks and the Frenchman took his rifle, went out. Within a few minutes, he dragged a huge bear into the cabin. And others said, "How did you do it? Just in 10 minutes, you got back with a bear." The Frenchman said, "I went out, I saw the tracks, followed the tracks, saw the bear, bang, shot the bear, and here I am." Alan? Am I right? Am I getting it right? Then Englishman, inspired by this, went out. Within 20 minutes, he also dragged another bear and came. They asked, "You too?" He said, "Yes, I just stepped out, saw the tracks, follow the track, bang, shot the bear, here I am." Then the Italian got inspired by this whole scene and he thought he too could do the bear. And he went out. After 2 hours, he came crawling, totally beaten and broken in every way. He crawled into the cabin. They asked what happened. He said, "I saw the tracks, I followed the tracks, and a train came and hit me." So, we are going to be very playful, but we don't want you to miss the point. If we want to do this playfully, if we want to do Leela, as I said, you need a heart full of love, a joyful mind and a vibrant body. Though all his life, Krishna talked about establishing dharma, the righteous way of living. With enormous respect for the wise of the ancient, still, with what disregard he dispensed of traditions and rituals and age-old practices which were carried by people for centuries or thousands of years for that matter. With how much ease he just dispensed them off. So, he is both sides of the coin. If you can only look this side or this side, you don't get him. He is both sides of the coin. He'll fall this way sometimes, he'll fall that way sometimes. When Krishna was just a youth of 15, he is living in a pastoral society where there is a yearly festival. All festivals in those days, because these are Aryan race who followed the Vedic culture. Vedic culture is full of rituals, various types of very elaborate rituals. So there's an annual festival and a sacrifice which is a very major ritual in the area, which was known as Indrotsav. Indrotsav means celebration of Indra. Indra is considered the king of gods. He is also the god of lightning and thunder and rain. Big sacrifice used to happen. Usually, for those of you who come from outside the country who are not familiar with these things, these sacrifices are conducted with fire burning, all kinds of offerings being made to the sacrifice, enormous amount of ghee, milk and various grains and everything that you value, you burn there. It's a process, it's a certain process to create a certain situation. So this used to happen in a colossal way. When he was 15, because he happens to be, or his foster father happens to be the chief of the Nandas or the Gopas. This is a cattle-rearing community. When I say cattle-rearing, not beef cattle, because question of eating a cow doesn't arise at all in this culture. Milking cows. These are cultures, especially when we say Krishna known as Gopala, or the whole community were known as Gopas or Gopis and Gopalas. Go means a cow, Pala means one who tends to it or takes care of it. So Krishna is a cowherd. All his life, some people celebrated this, that he is a cowherd. Some people used it as a derogatory term. Wherever he went, when he went and sat among the kings and saints, they put him down saying he's just a cowherd. But people who loved him celebrated him as a cowherd. So in this pastoral community, Indrotsav, the celebration for Indra, the sacrifice for Indra, the god of lightning, thunder and rain, was a very major sacrifice once a year. So at the age of 15, he got the opportunity of being the chief person to conduct this sacrifice. It is a great honor for a person in that society to be what was known as a yajamana for the sacrifice. Yajamana means he is the leader of the sacrifice. He is the one who offers the sacrifice, leads the sacrifice. It is a great honor. At 15, it was offered to him by his preceptor, whose name was Gargacharya. When Gargacharya offered this, Krishna said, I don't want to be the yajamana, I don't want to participate in that sacrifice. He was shocked. Anybody would grab it. It raises your social status in a huge way. If you do this sacrifice, if you lead the sacrifice, you are like a leader in the community. He said, why? So Krishna looked away and said, I don't think I'm fit for such things. Let somebody else do it. Gargacharya said, no, last year your elder brother did it, now it's your turn. If there's anybody fit to do this, it's you. Why are you saying such a thing? Tell me what's on your mind. Then Krishna said, I don't like this sacrifice. You need to understand, this is 3,500 years ago, 1500 BC. Today, astronomers, using various scientific methodology, they are fixing Krishna's time as 1400 to 1500 BC. It is almost being… they are saying it's 1446 to 1520, 1520 to 1446 BC, that's when he lived. So it's that time. So he said, I don't like the sacrifice. He said, what do you mean you don't like the sacrifice? This is the greatest thing that we can do in the society. This is a tradition we have carried on for thousands of years. In the very Vedas, it says Indrotsav is a sacrifice of enormous significance. How can you say you don't like it? You're a mere boy. He said, I don't like people doing any kind of sacrifice out of their fear for some god. I don't like this worship which is coming from fearfulness. People fear Indra. They fear if they don't make this sacrifice, he will punish them. I don't like to participate in something which is coming from people's fear. Then Gargacharya, his guru, it struck him. And then he smiled and said, okay, then what else shall we do? Then Krishna said, we will do Gopotsav. Gopotsav means we will celebrate the cowherds, not that some fearful god sitting up there. I love the people around me. The gopas, the gopis, the cows, these trees, this river, this Govardhan mountain, this is our life. It is these people, these animals, these trees and this mountain which sustains and nourishes us and makes our life happen here. Why should I worship some other god of which you are all afraid? I am not afraid of any god. If at all, if we must celebrate and offer sacrifice, we will do Gopotsav, no more Indrotsav. A huge reaction happened in the society. How can you just write off something that's been happening for hundreds of years? It's our tradition. How can you just drop it? And if Indra gets angry, what will he do to us? He may flood this place, he may do this, he may do that. So Krishna said, if you want me to be the Yajamana, it has to be Gopotsav. It has to be celebration out of our love and joy, not out of fear. And we will not offer, we will just make a symbolic offering to the fire. Rest of the milk and ghee we will eat and drink. That makes sense to you? So, that society got split into two. People who were not willing to give up the tradition. A small group, a splinter group, they performed Indrotsav. Krishna and a large community performed Gopotsav. But once this Gopotsav happened, Krishna went and participated in the Indrotsav also. He has no rank or a resistance to it, just bringing sense to life. So though all his life he went about talking about establishing a righteous way of living, this is what the man is. So every word that he utters can be misunderstood in a million different ways. Every word that he utters can be misunderstood in a million different ways. He is one man who allows enormous amount of misunderstanding. So if you have to grasp him, for Krishna, life is a festival. He lived his life like it's a festival. Even as a child, when he was just a child of 6, he's talking about himself. He says many beautiful things about himself. One thing he's saying is, when I wake up in the morning, when I hear the cows mooing, and when I wake up, I hear my mother milking the cows and calling each cow by its name, then I know it's time to rub my eyes and smile. Do you know this? Do you know this? In the morning when you hear the peacock call or the flute comes in the morning, it's time to rub your eyes and smile. One more day. I want you to get into this, otherwise Krishna and you are different worlds. I want you to get into a mood of festivity. We're doing everything possible to create an atmosphere of festivity. You must live here with a heart full of love, a joyful mind and a vibrant body, and it's a festival. Otherwise you won't grasp Krishna in its right perspective, because he's too many contradictions in one man, too many. There has never been another man with this many contradictions. He is the most colorful ever. Krishna, as a man, the mission that he took up in his life, the divine element, the same time the frailty of being a human being. Because he lived such an active life, all these things are mixed up as a complex web. It is not right to see him just as one thing, because he will come out as a totally distorted figure by looking at just one aspect of his life. He is so multidimensional. Unless you at least touch a little bit of all of him, it will be a total injustice to him. So, things that happen around him, very sensible things, very loving things, very joyful things, very ruthless things, cruel things, and absolutely miraculous things that happen around him. One thing was around him, one thing that did not happen was dullness. That did not happen. Everything else happened. Madness happened, love happened, murder happened, cunning happened, joy happened, ecstasy happened, miracles happened, but dullness is one thing that never happened. So don't make that happen here. His birth. Geographically, we are talking about the present Uttar Pradesh. Mathura, many of you might have been to Mathura. The scene is in Mathura. The king, not really a king, a prominent chief of a community which was referred to as Yadavas. Even now the Yadavs are still in power. So the Yadava community, the chiefs among them, a very important chief, almost on the stature of a king, but not really a king. So they were known as Rajanyas, not Rajas, Rajanyas, close to being a king, a great chief. His name was Ugrasena. He was becoming old, and his very ambitious son, who had no qualms about how to become powerful, could not wait for his father to die. When you're a king and your son has to be ambitious, you must die soon, or you must go to the forest. If you don't do both, ambition gets frustrated. So Kamsa, Ugrasena's son, got very frustrated with very just ways of handling things of his father. He thought this is too old-fashioned. Always it has been so. Always the younger generation thinks the old generation is old-fashioned. Old, you can imagine 3,500 years of how much old? From generation to generation. So, Kamsa's ambition could not wait. So he imprisoned his own father and took over the leadership of the place. And he aligned himself with an absolutely ruthless emperor from the east, whose name was Jarasandha, who was known for his brutality. With absolute brutal hand, his dream was to conquer the whole known world. So he was growing at great pace. So Kamsa aligned with him, because that was the only way to get powerful at that time. So this is the scene. And Kamsa's sister, Devaki, just got married to one of the Yadava chiefs. Among the Yadavas, there were many sub-communities. Kamsa belonged to a community called Vrishnis, and Vasudeva belonged to a community called Shuras. So Vasudeva, who was the chief of the Shuras, married Kamsa's sister, who was Devaki. Just after the wedding, Kamsa himself, wanting to drive the newlywed couple in his chariot, he was driving them, and an astral voice made a prophecy. So this voice said from the sky, "O Kamsa, very happily you're driving your sister after her wedding. The eighth child born to this sister of yours will slay you. That will be the end of you." Immediately Kamsa just got so angry and violent. Right there, he said, "Oh, the eighth child is going to come and kill me? I'm going to kill her right now. Let's see how she will have her eighth child." So he just took out his sword. Right there, he wants to behead his own sister who's been just married now. Then Vasudeva, the groom, begged of Kamsa, "Please spare her life. How can you do this? She's your sister, and that too we are just married. How can you just slaughter her right here? Her eighth child is going to kill me, I am not going to let anything like that happen." So Vasudeva made a pact. "All my children that are born to me, I will give it to you. You can kill them, but please spare my wife right now." Buying time. Okay. Otherwise it'll happen right now. Eighth child we will see. But Kamsa was overly concerned about his life and his security. So he kept his sister and his brother-in-law in a kind of house imprisonment, that they are constantly watched, and if she becomes pregnant, then she's really under watch because he wants to get the child. He doesn't want to take chances. The first child was born and his guards informed him that the child is born. He just came. Devaki and Vasudeva wept and begged, said, "It's only the eighth child which is going to kill you. Spare this one." Kamsa said, "I don't want to take any chances." He held the child by its legs, picked it up and smashed it on the rock. This same thing continued. The second child, the third child, they begged him in many ways, but he wouldn't spare a single one. 6 children were slaughtered like this, just born children. So by the time, this is about 7-8 years of time, by now they were very frustrated with his ways. The subjects in the kingdom were also too fearful of him. Everybody was fearful but frustrated of the ways of the king, absolutely cruel, constantly at battle with somebody and killing these children. So slowly dissension was beginning to happen within the palace. So when the 7th child came, Vasudeva managed to smuggle the 7th child out and replace it with a stillborn child that they found elsewhere. So they said, "This child was stillborn. What can we do? It was already dead, so you can't have the pleasure of killing this one." So the 7th one escaped, and this child was smuggled across the Yamuna river. This side is of Mathura. This side of Yamuna is Mathura, that side is Gokula. So they smuggled this child to the other side and was given to Rohini, another wife of Vasudeva. Most of these marriages were done more as a political alliance. If you're a chief, you married wherever you could because that brought peace and that brought political alliance and military alliance where the other group does not attack you because they have given their daughter to you. So, any number of marriages like this happened in the lives of kings in those days. That was one of the main form of diplomacy. So, somebody gives their daughter to you, so they cannot attack you, he's your ally anyway. So, another of Vasudeva's wives, whose name was Rohini, this child was given to her. That is the one who grew up as Balarama. Bala means strong, Rama is just a name. He grew up as a strong man. He became like a giant and became very strong, and there are any number of stories about his strength and his feats that he performed. But when the eighth child is due, Kamsa got really nervy about this and he put her in a proper prison, shackled. He shackled Vasudeva and put Devaki in a proper prison. All these days they were under house arrest, now she's in a proper prison. So when this child was born, this child was born on the eighth day into the dark half of the month, and it was pouring rain and thunder. So he would not allow anybody to enter the prison because something may happen. So he put his trusted aide, a lady who was related to him, whose name was Putana, as a midwife. She was supposed to watch, the moment the child is born, hand it over to him and kill the child. So Putana was there and you know the labor pains, it comes and it goes and it comes and it goes. She waited and waited, it didn't happen, she just went out to use the toilet and visit her home for a few minutes and come back. But when she went there, suddenly it rained, such heavy rain. This whole year, since the tsunami, we have been having watery things happening all over the world. Do you see? Lot of watery things. Bombay is flooding, Andhra Pradesh is flooding. I think people wherever they come from, you ask them, Delhi is flooding, Bombay is flooding, Andhra is flooding. Every place has been flooding, United States has been flooding. So, a very watery thing happened. Too much rain and the streets flooded. In that kind of situation, she could not come back. So the child was born at that time and a miracle happened. The doors of the prison just opened up by themselves. All the guards fell asleep, the shackles broke. Immediately Vasudeva saw this is a divine intervention, just picked up the child and as per an intuitive guidance, he just walked to the river Yamuna and there he found to his surprise, though the whole place was flooding, the ford, the ford which crosses the river was sticking out and he could clearly walk. So he walked across and handed over the child to Nanda or Nanda's wife Yashoda. She had just delivered a girl child and she was asleep. She had a difficult labor and she was unconscious. So he went and replaced Krishna there and took this other child, a girl child, and came back. And once again everything was intact and normal. Then the child cried, the guards went and reported to Kamsa. Kamsa came, by then Putana had come. And Kamsa saw, and this is a girl. This can't be, some wishy-washy has happened here. So he asked Putana, are you sure, were you here when the child was born? Putana, fearing for her life, she said, I was here, I saw it with my own eyes. This child was born to Devaki. Because if she says she went out, she will go out. So Putana gave authenticity to the whole thing and she said, this child was born right here in front of my eyes. So Devaki and Vasudeva begged, see, it is just a girl. This girl cannot kill you. If it was a boy, you would have killed. He could have been your slayer. But this is a girl, spare this girl. But Kamsa said, no, I don't want to take any chances. So he picked up the child. Once again, by its legs, he wants to crash it on the floor. As he was wanting to do this child slipped out and flew out of the window and laughed at him and said, your slayer is elsewhere. Now he got really suspicious. He investigated everybody concerned. The guards slept through, Putana went out. Nobody is willing to admit anything because all of them value their heads. See, when you run situations by threat, initially people think it's an advantage. If you don't do this, you're dead. Things will happen like that. But after some time, this becomes the biggest problem because they know if something doesn't happen, it costs their life. So they will create a whole make-believe situation all around them. So when you run things out of fear, this is a consequence that one have to face anyway. But Kamsa was not satisfied, especially this girl flying away and saying, your slayer is elsewhere. He didn't like that at all. So he said, all the children born in this month of Shravana, it was the month of Shravana, said all the children born in this month of Shravana must be killed, wherever they are. So he sent out people. Initially they went and picked up a few children and killed, but then it became a very unpopular thing. People protested and a revolt was on the way. Then he cooled down, then he called Putana and said, soldiers going out and killing is not good. It will produce a revolt in the society. You go out, you're a woman. You go out from house to house, check out who are the children born in this month and you just kill them. Putana said, see, I don't want to do this. But he said, you have to do it. So Putana went about identifying children who were born in this month, that particular month, and started killing them. 9 children she killed. Then it was too much for her. She said, I won't do it anymore. And Kamsa said, it cannot be. How can just 9 children be born in this whole month? There must be more. Putana said, there are no more. Putana reported back to him saying, only 9 children were there, all of them I have killed. No more children, because she doesn't want to kill anymore. So now Krishna was placed in Gokula in a cowherd community. Being the son of a king or a chief, now he's placed in an ordinary cowherd community and he grew up. You must have heard any number of stories about his butter and milk and all this stuff, because those were the only snacks that were there in that community. There was no chocolate cake, butter, milk. They were the main things there. So, whatever was the cream of the food available, he went for that. There are any number of miracles and adventures that happened around him. during that phase of his life when he is growing up,